A nation at a crossroads, a military deal worth billions, a global superpower that no longer sees its closest neighbor as an ally, but as an economic target. The future of Canada's Air Force now hangs in the balance, and this debate isn't just about fighter jets, it's about sovereignty itself. Canada once stood firmly in Washington's corner, trusting in the strength of North American defense cooperation. But that trust has been tested. In 2023, the Canadian government made a historic commitment, an agreement to purchase 88 F-35 fighter jets from the United States. This $19 billion investment was meant to modernize Canada's Air Force and secure its skies for decades. It was the largest military procurement in over 30 years, a defining moment in Canada's strategic defense planning. But today, everything has changed. With shifting political dynamics and renewed economic tensions, Canada is questioning whether this deal still serves its best interests. What happens when a longtime partner turns into a potential threat? Is Canada ready to break away from American military dependency? Before we dive into this, make sure to subscribe to the African Web and hit the bell icon to stay updated on global geopolitics and Africa's changing landscape. The decision to purchase the F-35 wasn't just about military strength, it was a geopolitical statement. Lockheed Martin's F-35 Lightning II is the most advanced stealth fighter in the world, a symbol of power and technological superiority. Many NATO allies, including the US, the UK, and Australia, have integrated the F-35 into their air forces. For Canada, choosing this aircraft meant aligning closely with Washington's strategic vision. However, critics warned that this wasn't just an aircraft purchase, it was a long-term dependency. The F-35 program locks Canada into a US-controlled ecosystem of maintenance, upgrades, and servicing. Once committed, Canada would need American approval for everything from spare parts to software updates. While the government defended the deal as necessary for national security and NATO interoperability, few considered what would happen if relations between Canada and the US soured. And now, in 2025, that very scenario is unfolding. With Washington adopting an increasingly aggressive economic stance, Canada is reassessing whether this deal still makes sense. Under former agreements, Canada and the US maintained a close, if sometimes uneasy, alliance. But with Donald Trump's return to the White House in 2025, Washington has taken a drastic turn. Trump's administration has reignited trade wars, imposed tariffs, and adopted an America First military policy that puts allied interests second. For Canada, this is no longer just about trade. Trump's economic policies are affecting national security. The US has already used trade agreements as leverage against allies. What's stopping it from doing the same with military contracts? What if Washington imposes restrictions on Canada's F-35 fleet, limiting upgrades or access to key components? Would Canada find itself at the mercy of American geopolitical maneuvering? With these concerns mounting, newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney has taken decisive action. Just days after assuming office, he ordered an urgent review of the F-35 contract. His administration is weighing whether Canada should move forward with its commitment or seek alternatives that offer greater sovereignty and flexibility. If Canada walks away from the F-35 deal, it must find a replacement. But what are the options? And can any alternative offer the same level of security without the strings attached? One of the most attractive alternatives is Sweden's Saab Gripen E. Unlike the F-35, the Gripen is designed for self-sufficiency, requiring minimal reliance on foreign suppliers. Saab has even offered to assemble the aircraft in Canada, ensuring that jobs, technology, and control remain within the country. Additionally, the Gripen is significantly cheaper than the F-35. It requires less maintenance and can operate from remote bases, highways, and even improvised airstrips, an advantage in Canada's vast, rugged terrain. However, there's a trade-off. The Gripen lacks stealth technology, which is a key feature of the F-35. Another option is the Boeing F-18 Super Hornet, which was originally Canada's second choice in the fighter jet selection process. The advantage of the Super Hornet is familiarity. Canada's current fleet of CF-18s is based on this design, making the transition smoother and cheaper. It also comes with fewer operational restrictions compared to the F-35. But again, there are limitations. The Super Hornet is not a stealth aircraft. As more nations shift toward fifth-generation fighters, Canada risks falling behind in aerial combat capabilities. Perhaps the most controversial option would be for Canada to diversify its defense partnerships beyond the West. China's J-20 stealth fighter and Russia's Su-57 are both advanced aircraft that rival the F-35 in certain aspects. Choosing none, NATO suppliers would mark a radical shift in Canada's defense policy, challenging decades of U.S. military influence. However, such a move would come with enormous political consequences. Turning to China or Russia for military hardware would strain Canada's relationships with its traditional allies, potentially leading to diplomatic and economic repercussions. At its core, this debate is about more than just fighter jets. It's about independence. For decades, Canada has relied on American technology to maintain its defense capabilities. But as the world grows more unpredictable, Canada must ask itself, can afford to remain dependent on a partner that increasingly prioritizes its own interests above all else. The F-35 review marks a pivotal moment in Canada's defense strategy. Will Canada break away from U.S. military dominance and chart its own course, or will it find a way to balance sovereignty with strategic cooperation? A shift in Canada's defense policy could have far-reaching consequences for global geopolitics. If Canada opts for non-American fighter jets, it may encourage other U.S. allies to reconsider their military dependencies. This could weaken the U.S. grip on NATO allies, shifting military alliances and reshaping international power dynamics. Additionally, a break from the F-35 program could lead to trade and economic repercussions. Washington could retaliate by limiting Canada's access to military technology, imposing economic sanctions, or even restricting trade agreements. In such a scenario, Canada would need to reinforce its economic ties with other nations to mitigate potential fallout. Public opinion on the F-35 deal is deeply divided. Some argue that sticking with the F-35 ensures Canada remains technologically competitive in global defense. Others believe that breaking free from U.S. military dependency is a necessary step toward true sovereignty. Supporters of the F-35 program argue that it offers cutting-edge technology, ensuring Canada's military remains prepared for modern warfare. They emphasize that NATO interoperability is crucial for national defense, and shifting away from the F-35 could isolate Canada from its closest allies. On the other hand, critics highlight the risks of long-term reliance on Washington. They warn that U.S. foreign policy shifts could leave Canada vulnerable, with limited access to critical upgrades and maintenance. They argue that Canada must invest in a defense strategy that prioritizes self-sufficiency rather than American approval. As Canada stands at this crossroads, the final decision will shape the nation's defense strategy for generations to come. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should Canada stick with the F-35, or is it time to explore new options? Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the African Web for more in-depth analysis on geopolitics and Africa's changing landscape.